Hello, I'm Mr. Pibbles, and welcome back to our Planet Coaster 2 Challenge Park series here in Planet Coaster 2. In our last episode, we started our Wild West themed area of the park, which is all very fun stuff. So we got this is the Balloonists, and this Coriolis ride. Then we got this done. This is our sort of main street. It's got everything you would want down here, including the saloon. And then we started this, which is our lovely lumber mill with our off-the-rails ride. That is our... I can't actually remember the name of it. Mecha Roller. So where are we going today? Well, today we're finally moving on to this. So we're finally moving on to the River Rapids, and we're having a bit of a play around to see what we can do with it. So, without further ado, let's roll that time lapse. Yes, hello, it is me here with the time lapse. Or should that be howdy, I'm not sure. So today we are, indeed, as I've said, working on this River Rapids ride. Now, there's a real lack of tracked rides in this park. Of course, we've got roller coasters, but we don't have many sort of these tracked rides. You know, my mind goes, okay, well, we've got the train, and we've got the log flume, and we've got the ghost train, and that's about it. So I thought I might as well get another one of these rides in, and it is the River Rapids. Now, why have I gone for a set of River Rapids in a park like this? Well, I've made no kind of surprise, no. I've made no secret of the fact that I'm trying to really make this sort of the biggest budget area of this park. This is supposed to be the part of the park where, you know, we've really got money to play around with. And so that's why kind of we're here, and we are really kind of have just... Well, this is the biggest area of the park. So I wanted it to have this vibe, and I thought, actually, what fits a Wild West themed area better than a River Rapids ride? So hence why we're doing this. Now, while I have been yapping away over the last minute, we have actually created the ride layout. It took so little time. I wasn't expecting it to be that short. So instead, kind of, we've got a lot more of this video to play around with other bits and talk about it. So, what really is the goal here? Well, as you can see, I've got this River Rapids flowing around this rock formation. So the sort of like the big mountains at the back. I got it flowing around there, and then it comes down this bit at the end into the main river of the town, and then it goes back up, and the whole theme behind it is sort of meant to be almost this logging company. Now, one would think, oh, why didn't you go for a log flume? Well, that's simply because we've already got a log flume, and I didn't want to, you know, use the same thing twice, because we've already got a log flume, so why would I create a second one? And so instead we've got this wonderful River Rapids ride here, which I think works quite well. Now, you'll notice there's that bit, that split between the rocks where there's that waterfall in the back. That was made intentionally for this ride, because I had this idea of having it flow across there, and I think it works really well at doing what it does, and it conveys everything that I want it to convey really well. And you've got all these different things like these bridges over it at this end, and you've got this massive really this kind of massive station, like, in terms of where it is. So you'll see how we play around with that in a bit. Now, before we get on to any of that, first we've got a ride vehicle to create. So we start off with these wonderful bits of rope with this rope spool in the middle. My entire goal was to make this look a little bit more Western. So we start with that. And then I came across this water basin, and I had an awful idea. There was actually a wonderful idea, which was taking this basin and positioning it to make it look like the whole base of this thing, so it almost looks like you're floating in sort of an extended barrel, and I really like the look of that. Again, kind of, we can get away with it being slightly bigger budget in this park, so I really like that. Then what we've got here is these these lanterns on the outside, I don't know how realistic they'd be, they don't light up at all, but I think it works. And then I toyed around with the idea of having a buzzsaw in the middle, because this is meant to be sort of themed to this sawmill, and then I just didn't. But I will later, and you'll see that. But why would we do that when we can finally make a start on the station? Now, the first thing that I'm doing here, you might be questioning. You might be going, but that's not the station, what are you doing? Well, in the real world, many of the river rapids that I've come across, my mind instantly goes to things like the old rapids that used to be at Legoland Windsor. There's also the rapids at Park Asterix, and indeed I've forgotten their name, but the rapids at Alton Towers, and those are kind of my big three examples. And they all have this very specific loading station that I wanted to replicate. Now, you can't exactly do this in the game, not as perfectly as I wanted to, but the whole idea is you've got this platform that spins that you stand on, and then kind of that takes you round, and kind of you get off, you can get on. And I've tried to replicate that here with this kind of bit of that bit there, kind of on that moving platform. And I think it works quite well when you've got all of these rafts kind of properly flowing, and it looks quite good. My only downside of it is it does look a little blocky, and once everything backs up, it sort of stops really working as well as it could. But that's besides the point. Now, I wanted to try something a little bit different with the station here, in having kind of this station building. I wanted to try out using these pipes as sort of the main support structure. I will give you a plot twist for free. They do not stay that way, but it sort of kind of creates this almost kind of base idea of what we're going to do with this building. Now, you can see that I've got this staircase here that leads from the exit down to the ground. I'd possibly think about instead kind of, if I was clever about it, what I would have done is have the exit station down on the ground level, but the unfortunate thing is we did not have enough space with this area to do something like that. So instead, we made do with what we had. So instead, here we are now with our queue line. Now, we're starting off with this cattle pen element here that goes into the rock. That's something that I wanted to happen. And then we sort of come down here and we play around a bit with levels. So we come down here for a little bit before having another cattle pen element, and then going down, having another cattle pen. And then we go down properly into the rock itself now, which is fun. So having this sort of kind of staircase element in the rock, I really like the idea of having sort of all of this queue line be around this rock structure. And it will. This isn't the last we've seen of a rock-based queue. We will toy around with that more later. And we now have a name. This is the White River Logging Company, which will change to be the Whitewater Logging Company, because I put some signage on the outside of the building and couldn't be asked to change it. So instead, we are starting off with these batten walls here for the structure. Now, this is very much you're going to have to trust me with the process, because it's going to begin by looking very ugly, and I too was skeptical about it at the beginning, and then the more I got into this, the more I realised, oh yeah, I actually really like this building, and I actually really like the silhouette that it makes. But you're going to have to trust me on that, because for now it is very much just big box. I mean, not that there's anything wrong with the idea of a big box, but sort of I wanted to play around with sort of what it looked like and sort of do something that I haven't done before. So where we're going now is just developing this out. Now, the interesting... I'm not going to call it the difficult thing, but the interesting thing is that these... the station is actually two different buildings, because you've got the onboard platform, you've got the offload platform. And so the problem that you endure with that then becomes, okay, we need to mirror this exactly but it's not the exact distance between them, so yeah. You can see me there, zoom out, have a look at this, and that I think is my first moment of going, okay, this doesn't look ideal, let's see what we can do. So here we are now moving to the load station. Starting off with this arch for the maintenance staff, followed by these baton wall station bits, and then just fully just kind of bringing those around and kind of bringing that down to just create, again, this wooden structure that, again, ends up being big wood block. But you can see me here kind of playing around with it, trying my best to find something that works with it all. And unfortunately, we don't have the time to kind of watch the entire process of building this station, but we will have a proper look at it later in terms of what I've done. Now, I've copied across those pipes there again. I will reiterate that they do not stay. I tried building up this roof, building up this building, and to be fair, I had more trouble with this roof than I'd care to admit, because I had an idea of what I wanted, and then I got into it and went, oh, I can't actually do what I want efficiently because it's two separate buildings and the distance isn't exactly right to do what I want. So, I toy around here with having just a plain building like that for the offload station, and then we sort of come over here to the onload station and try to mirror it. The problem therein being that you can't exactly mirror it because the offload station is larger than the onload station. So then we come over here and instead we go, okay, let's instead try this then with these corner pieces and having sort of very much a more kind of corner-based system of kind of making this look a little bit more interesting. And you can see here that it is now starting to somewhat work, and then moving over to our onload station we can try again to replicate that sort of feel, which is fun. Now you may be wondering sort of where my architectural ideas for this all come about from. It comes from a couple of different places. There is the cut in our footage, and I will tell you about it as we start over here. So you can see in the background there our building. I will mention that I got it all done. I did change those bits out for these wooden beams, and that brings me nicely onto what we're doing here. So I didn't want this to just be kind of the trough with its supports over this gap. I actually wanted to build a Wild West style rail bridge for it to go over, because I had this really nice idea and this nice kind of silhouette in mind of sort of this, and then what we're going to end up doing in the next episode, which if you haven't guessed already, oh no, but there we go. So this is what we're starting with. But the main place I've been taking my inspiration from for this area has actually been somewhat Red Dead Redemption, that being Red Dead Redemption 2. I've started replaying it recently and I forgot how fun it was. So, absolute masterpiece, and that is where we're coming up with some of these ideas, because I believe there is, I want to say it's down in, I want to say New Austin, there's a rail bridge that looks somewhat like this, where you've got this lattice structure down below, and then it kind of turns into kind of up above everything. It's either New Hanover or New Austin, but I feel like it's New Austin. There's this bridge that sort of, again, has this wooden style, and then you'll see what I do with it in a sec, but I put this sort of structure over the top of the bridge, and it looks really, really cool. Like, I will say that for free. I really like the way that this all turns out. But yeah, that is really the stage of the process that we are at now. It is just kind of coming in and making it all look alright. I don't think there's really kind of much else we can do on a ride like this when we've already done the layout, we've done the station. What more do we need to do apart from make it look pretty? Which is the whole kind of idea behind this. So you can see me here centering this bridge. And now we will finally get to this kind of structure over the top. Now, I did toy around with this a little bit, but kind of the thing that surprised me is this original design that I go for. I don't actually change much in terms of what it looks like. So we start off with these beams here, and then we've got this 8-meter section that goes all the way over the top, and then we copy it over. I know you may wonder, why didn't I just take that beam all the way across? I don't know, but I think it does look quite nice because it almost gives it a bit of a geometric structure to it, which is all very fun. And then we can pull up more of these 8-meter beams, kind of stick them right in the middle of these bridge pieces and on all of the ends. And again, it looks kind of, again, very bare bones at the moment, but it will look good. Kind of, again, it's one of these processes where I'm midway through it, I go, is this really going to look as good as I think it does? And then it does. It ends up going kind of exactly how I planned it to, which is nice. And again, this is just a very iconic piece of, sort of, you think Wild West media, you think of a bridge like this over a river or over a gully or something like that will sometimes have this sort of waterfall behind it, which is fun. So you can see me toying with it down there, and you can see that slowly but surely this whole concept of the rail bridge, which isn't really a rail bridge, it's more of a rapid bridge, but it is coming along well, which is fun. So that is all wonderful stuff. Now you can see me here, I do toy around with it and go, we could do better than that, because it did look a bit big. But then I kind of thought about it and went, actually no, because if it was, I'm toying with making it feel like this real rail bridge. So kind of, you'd have the rail bridge actually be that big, even if it wasn't, a rail, a train going through it. So I went, actually that's alright. And then we move on to this next section. So this next section of the rapids is this mine section. I know we've sort of left that beginning section, but we will move on to that in a bit. So we've got this section here, which is meant to kind of feel like a little bit of a mine. You think iconic Wild West media, you do think, okay, they've got mines. And sort of, that's the whole point of really this area, is to bring all of these kind of pieces of iconography together in a way that feels somewhat authentic, but also somewhat not. This is still meant to be this budget park somewhere in Britain that's building this. Well, family-owned park, should we say, because we've now got the budget, but I still want it to feel very much anglicised, as it were, and very much romanticising this Wild West culture, which is fun. So, as I say, we've got these mine beams here, and kind of we're toying around with that idea, and then we will also toy around with other iconography throughout both this ride and the next, and just this area as a whole. Now we can get in and put some of these bits and pieces of theming down, like these dynamite crates. I thought dynamite was actually a really good place to start. We've got a boiler going in there. Why is there a boiler in there? I don't know. Don't ask me. I did toy around with the idea of having a minecart on a track running around here. I know I've done that sort of idea of a minecart running about before in a different park. I did it in the Halloween park that we did in the Omnimover style dark ride, which was all themed to the underground and crypts, and that there was a minecart going around with the skeleton in it. But I ultimately decided against that. So instead we are putting all of these crystals down from the sorcery pack. And I really like the way that these look, kind of having this almost crystal maze. It toys the line between realism and just outright fantasy, which I quite like. Now, turning our attention back, we've got this cavern here. Now, I really wanted it to kind of be this cavernous opening for reasons which we will get into in the next episode. So we are just putting some of these aquatic rocks down, sort of to almost form these stalactites and stalagmites, and then using more of these aquatic rocks to build things like bridges, because they just have wonderful shapes to them, which is weird to say, but they do have these weird and wacky wonderful shapes that you can do all sorts of things with. And so I decided I'd try putting a little camp in here to kind of toy around with everything. And so you can see me sticking these bits down here. You may wonder why I'm not putting anything to the right, but that will all become apparent. Say it with me in the next episode. So now we're coming around and sticking some of these oil lamps down, which is fun. So they're going basically everywhere around these bits. Now I did wonder what can I put right at the front, because, you know, you won't be there for long, but, you know, you still need something as you go into this area. So what I'm ultimately ending up doing after sticking all these lamps down is we will go back to the very beginning and place some pipes down, as pipes have been very much a friend of mine throughout this ride, especially throughout the station building. But you can see me here toying around with what else can I put in this little alcove. We've got some bison skulls down. I did toy around with sticking some coffins somewhere, but it is this bit near the start here where we finally stick down some iron pipes next to our door, which actually opens, which is fun. You know, I really wanted to stick one of those down because we don't actually have a coaster door that works in this park, and I thought actually that's the perfect place to put one. And then finally we'll stick an oil pump down there. Why is there an oil pump there? I do not know. Now we are slowly but surely approaching the end of this time-lapse segment, so I will warn you that outright now before we move on to our final thing of the episode, which is sticking down this waterfall. Kind of waterfalls have really been my friend throughout this area, just because I think they really sort of fit into these rocks and sort of fit into these structures that are going up here, especially with the river, and it just makes everything look a little bit more dynamic, which is it just works. And this also ties into the queue line of the final ride that's going to go into the area in the next episode. Okay, welcome back to real time. So we have got quite a bit done in this episode. As you can see, we've got this white water logging company sort of river rapids done. Obviously we started off by building the layout, which we will take a tour of in a sec, but you can obviously see it all at the moment. Then we moved on to this station building, which I really, really like, sort of the complexity of this and how sort of different every single little bit of this looks. So it's sort of like you've got this bit down here, the main building, and then you move up to the top here, and you've got all of these, and then you can see I've had a bit of a play around with making the rides themselves look good. And then we've got the layout, which we did at the start, and then we've added some more to that, like these pipes, these stalactites with these lights, this little clearing here, which we will be looking at a little bit more in the next episode, this wonderful rail bridge, which I really like the look of from down here. Kind of that's exactly what I was looking for with that. Then obviously we've got this lovely little mine down here with sort of this bit that comes around here and then kind of comes down the waterfall there and then comes through the town. And I really, really like the look of this ride. I would say that this River Rapids is a success. So, if you have enjoyed this episode, then please give me a like, give me a comment, possibly even give me a subscribe if I'm lucky enough, and I will see you within the next episode. Ta-ta! Let's roll that outro.